Elon Musk didn't do late-night TV often, but when the email from Stephen Colbert's team landed in his inbox, he paused. Subject line: The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, guest invitation. Most of these he ignored, letting his assistants filter out the noise. Talk shows weren't his thing. Too much fluff, not enough substance. But Colbert was different. The guy had a massive audience, millions who hung on his every quip, and a reputation for blending comedy with a razor edge. Musk's team saw it as a chance to reach people who didn't follow tech blogs or X posts, regular folks who might actually care about what he was building. He mulled it over, staring at the email on his phone while a Tesla prototype hummed in the background of a factory floor. Why not? He thought. Could be interesting. He typed back a quick reply. Set it up. And that was that. A week later, he was walking into a New York studio, the air thick with the buzz of anticipation. The green room was standard, a little too polished, with its leather couch and a tray of bottled water. Musk grabbed one, twisted the cap off, and took a sip, glancing at a monitor playing clips of Colbert's past shows. Politicians squirming, actors laughing too hard at their own jokes, CEOs trying to dodge the host's jabs. He knew the game. Colbert wasn't just a comedian. He was a tactician, disarming guests with charm before slipping in the knife. Musk wasn't fazed. He'd faced congressional hearings, shareholder meltdowns, and rocket explosions that cost billions. A guy with a microphone didn't scare him. A production assistant poked her head in. 5 minutes, Mr. Musk. He nodded, set the water down, and adjusted his jacket. The same black one he always wore, simple, unpretentious. Then he walked out, step steady, like a man who'd already calculated every move. The studio was alive, a sea of faces stretching back into the shadows, some craning their necks to get a better look. The set was bright, all glass and steel, with a desk angled just so, 2 chairs waiting. Colbert was already there, flipping through notes, his glasses catching the light. He looked up as Musk approached, flashing that wide, practiced grin. "Elon Musk, everybody!" he called out, standing to shake his hand. The crowd erupted, cheers mixed with a few skeptical murmurs. Musk shook his hand, firm but quick, and they sat. The theme music faded, the lights tightened on them, and the room hushed. Colbert leaned forward, elbows on the desk, his voice warm but playful. "Folks, we've got the man who's sending rockets to Mars, cars into space, and tweets that keep half the internet up at night. Elon Musk, welcome to the show." More applause. Musk gave a small smile. "Thanks for having me, Stephen." Colbert didn't waste time. "So, Elon, let's start easy. You're the richest guy on the planet, give or take a few billion. You've got Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, X, probably a secret volcano lair somewhere. What's it like being you?" The audience laughed, and Musk chuckled, leaning back slightly. "It's busy," he said. "No volcano lair yet, though. Still working on the permits." More laughs. Colbert nodded. "Fair, fair. But seriously, you're out there trying to save the world, right? Electric cars, colonizing Mars. Big stuff. Do you ever sleep?" Musk shrugged. "Enough. The trick is not panicking when things blow up. Literally." The crowd liked that, a ripple of amusement spreading through the seats. Colbert grinned, but his eyes sharpened just a touch. "Right, blowing up. We'll circle back to that. But let's talk Tesla for a sec. You've got people buying these cars like they're the future, and they kind of are. How's it feel knowing you're changing how we drive?" Musk tilted his head, considering it. "It's good. We're pushing boundaries, making things people didn't think were possible. That's the point." Colbert nodded, but there was a shift in his tone, subtle, like a cloud moving over the sun. "Sure, boundaries. But not everyone's thrilled, right? I mean, you've got fans, no question, but there are folks who say you're moving too fast, taking risks that maybe don't need taking." What do you say to them? Musk's expression didn't change, but he leaned forward just a bit. I say progress isn't safe. Never has been. You don't get anywhere new by staying comfortable. The audience murmured, some nodding, others not so sure. Colbert tapped his desk lightly, his smile still there but tighter now. Progress, huh? Interesting word. Because some people might call it something else. Recklessness, maybe. Or arrogance. He paused, letting it hang. Musk met his gaze, unflinching. Depends who's doing the naming, he said evenly. The room felt a little heavier, the first crack of tension breaking through the surface. The air in the studio thickened as Stephen Colbert leaned back in his chair, twirling a pen between his fingers. That last exchange hung there, sharp and unresolved, and the audience could feel it. Musk sat steady, his hands resting lightly on the arms of his chair, watching Colbert like he was sizing up a chess opponent. The host flashed a grin, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Fair point, Elon, he said. Naming's half the game. So let's name something else. SpaceX. You're out there launching rockets, dreaming of Mars, and I'll admit it's pretty cool. I mean, who doesn't want to be an astronaut when they grow up? The crowd chuckled, a few hands clapping. But, Colbert continued, his voice dipping lower, those launches, they don't always go smooth, do they? Explosions, delays, taxpayers footing some of the bill through contracts. Some folks say it's less about exploration and more about your ego. What's the real story? Musk didn't blink. The real story's simple, he said. We're trying to make humanity multiplanetary. That's not ego, that's survival. Rockets blow up sometimes, yeah. It's how you learn. NASA's had its share of fireballs too, but nobody calls them reckless. The audience murmured, some nodding, others shifting in their seats. Colbert tilted his head. Sure, but NASA's not one guy with a checkbook and a Twitter account. You're the face of it, Elon. Every boom, every billion, it's on you. Doesn't that weigh a little? Musk shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Weight's fine. Keeps you grounded. Or, motivates you to leave the ground. A ripple of laughter broke the tension, but Colbert wasn't letting it slide. Grounded, huh? He said, tapping his notes. Let's pivot then. X, you bought it, turned it upside down, fired half the staff, and now it's your megaphone. People say it's a free-for-all now. Chaos, trolls, misinformation running wild. You're the big free speech guy, but is it really free if it's just loud? Musk leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but firm. It's freer than it was. Before, you had a handful of execs deciding what millions could say. Now it's messy, sure, but it's closer to real. People can handle mess. They're not dumb. Colbert raised an eyebrow. Not dumb, maybe, but angry, divided. Some say you're amplifying that, not fixing it. You cool with being the guy who pours gas on the fire? Musk's eyes narrowed just a fraction. I'd rather light a fire than pretend everything's fine in the dark, he said. The room went quiet for a beat, the weight of that sinking in. Colbert nodded slowly like he was chewing on it. Then he shifted gears, his tone lighter but his aim sharper. Okay, let's talk Neuralink. Brain chips. You're out here trying to plug us into computers, which, I gotta say, sounds like something I'd see in a movie where the robots win. Scattered laughs from the crowd. But seriously, Elon, what happens when that goes wrong? Hackers, glitches, some guy in a basement controlling your thoughts. You're not worried? Musk exhaled, almost amused. Movies again, Stephen. It's not mind control. It's about helping people, paralysis victims, blind folks, getting their lives back. Risks? Sure, but sitting still's riskier. Colbert grinned. Helping people, got it. Noble stuff. But you've got a track record of promising big and delivering late. Tesla deadlines. Hyperloop. Mars by 2024. People trust you with their brains. They're gonna want it on time. The audience laughed, but it was edgier now, sensing the jab. Musk didn't flinch. Deadlines are guesses, he said. You don't rush something like this. It's not a car, it's a brain. We get it right, or we don't do it. Colbert leaned forward, his smile tightening. Guesses, huh? That's a hell of a word when lives are on the line. Because here's the thing, Elon. You've got this habit of betting big. And when it flops, you walk away fine. Workers, taxpayers, regular people. They don't always land so soft. The crowd stirred, a mix of claps and murmurs. Musk's jaw tightened slightly, but his voice stayed even. I don't walk away fine. Every failure's on me. You think I sleep easy when a rocket craters? But somebody's got to take the swing. You don't change anything hiding behind a desk. Colbert's eyes glinted, sensing an opening. Swinging's one thing, he said. But swinging wild? That's where people start asking questions. And I've got a big one coming up. He paused, letting the tension coil tighter. Stephen Colbert let that pause stretch, the studio lights casting long shadows across the desk as the audience leaned in, waiting. He flipped a note card, his grin still there, but thinner, more calculated. Big question time, Elon, he said, his voice dropping an octave. You're out there swinging, like you said, changing the world, taking risks. But let's talk about the people who get caught in the blast radius. Tesla, for instance. Lawsuits piling up, discrimination claims, workers saying they're overworked, underpaid, treated like cogs in your machine. You're the visionary, sure, but what about the folks on the factory floor? The crowd murmured, a few claps breaking through. Musk's expression didn't shift much, but his fingers tapped once against the chair arm, a flicker of something passing through his eyes. He leaned forward, voice steady. Every company's got lawsuits, Stephen. Tesla's no exception. We've had issues, yeah, and we fixed them where we found them. But the people on the floor, they're why we're here. They build the cars, the batteries, the future. I don't forget that. Colbert tilted his head, unconvinced. Fixed them, huh? That's not what some of them say. Reports out of Fremont, people working 12-hour shifts, no breaks, injuries stacking up. One guy said it felt like a sweatshop with better branding. A few gasps from the audience, a few nods. Musk exhaled. Reports get loud when people want them to. We've got safety standards, audits, data. It's not perfect, but it's not a sweatshop. It's a mission. Colbert smirked. Mission's a nice word. Sounds heroic. But when the mission's yours and the cost is theirs, that's where it gets murky. The room felt tighter now, the playful vibe from earlier gone. Colbert pressed on, flipping another card. And it's not just Tesla. SpaceX, those contracts with NASA, taxpayers shelling out billions while you're tweeting memes. Some say you're a genius at getting public money for private dreams. How's that sit with you? Musk's smile was faint, almost wry. NASA's a partner, not a piggy bank. They get tech, we get funding, humanity gets off the planet. It's not charity, it's a deal. You want to talk waste? Look at the budgets they had before we showed up. The audience stirred, some clapping, others skeptical. Colbert chuckled, but it was sharp. Partner? Sure. But you're the one who walks away with the headlines and the cash. Meanwhile, folks are asking why their taxes keep your rockets flying. Musk shrugged. They're not just my rockets. They're everyone's shot at something bigger. You don't get that sitting on the sidelines. Colbert's eyes narrowed, sensing the dodge. Bigger's great, Elon, but let's zoom in. X, your playground. Now. You've got power there, real power, deciding what's seen, what's buried. People say you're curating truth to fit your lens. That's not a mission. That's control. Musk's voice stayed level, but there was an edge now. Control's what the old guard had, Stephen. I opened it up. It's raw. It's loud, but it's not me picking winners. It's people. Colbert leaned forward. Raw's one way to put it. Toxic's another. You've got hate spiking, bots running wild, and you're just shrugging it off like it's progress. The crowd was split, some murmuring agreement, others waiting for Musk's reply. He met Colbert's gaze, unflinching. Progress isn't pretty. You want a sanitized internet? Go back to the way it was, gatekeepers and all. I'd rather see the mess than pretend it's not there. Colbert's grin twitched, a flash of frustration breaking through. Mess is fine when you're not the one cleaning it up. But let's cut to the chase, Elon. I've got something big, something people are whispering about, and I want to hear it from you. He paused, the room dead silent, every eye locked on them. There's a story floating around, quiet so far, but it's ugly. Word is, Tesla's been burying safety data, crashes tied to self-driving, stuff that didn't make the news. People hurt, maybe worse. Is that true? The accusation landed like a brick through glass, the audience gasping, shifting, a low buzz rippling through. Musk's face didn't change, but his posture stiffened, just slightly. "That's a hell of a claim, Stephen," he said, voice low. "You got evidence? Or just whispers?" Colbert didn't back down, his tone hard now. "Whispers from people who've seen things, Elon. Engineers, insiders, saying you knew, and you kept pushing. True or not?" Musk's eyes locked on his, a beat passing. "No," he said, firm. "We report what's required. We fix what's broken. If someone's got proof, let's see it." Colbert stared back, the tension electric, the room holding its breath. The silence in the studio was deafening, Stephen Colbert's accusation still echoing through the room. Musk sat there, eyes steady, his "let's see it" hanging in the air like a challenge. The audience was frozen, caught between shock and anticipation, every rustle of a seat amplified in the hush. Colbert didn't flinch, his fingers gripping the edge of his desk, the playful host mask gone. "Proof, huh?" he said, voice tight. "Fair enough, Elon. I'm not a courtroom, but you don't get to sit there and act like this is nothing. People are talking, people who've worked for you, saying they warned you about self-driving glitches, crashes that didn't hit the headlines. Families left picking up pieces while you're tweeting about Mars. That's not whispers. That's a scream." The crowd stirred, a mix of gasps and murmurs, some leaning forward, others looking at Musk for a crack in his armor. Musk's jaw tightened, just for a second, but he kept his tone even. "You're throwing a lot out there, Stephen. If there's a scream, I haven't heard it. We've got data, regulators, investigations. Nothing's buried. You're saying people got hurt. That's serious. But you're also saying I knew and did nothing. That's a lie." His voice didn't waver, but there was heat in it now, a flicker of something raw beneath the calm. Colbert's eyes flashed, his hand shifting to the glass of water on his desk, fingers brushing the rim. "A lie?" he shot back. "You're the king of bold moves, Elon, but dodging's your specialty. You've got a pattern, shrugging off the fallout while the world claps for your genius. This isn't about data, it's about trust. And people don't trust you anymore." The room felt like it was shrinking, the air heavy with unspoken stakes. Musk leaned forward, his gaze locked on Colbert. "Trust's earned, not handed out. I don't dodge, I build. If someone's got real evidence, not rumors, I'll face it. But you're not here for truth. You're here for a moment." The audience buzzed, a few claps breaking out. But Colbert wasn't having it. His face hardened, a flush creeping up his neck. "A moment?" he said, voice rising. "This isn't a game show, Elon. People died. Families got calls in the middle of the night because your tech failed, and you're sitting there like it's just another Tuesday. You don't get to call that a moment." The crowd gasped, the weight of "died" hitting hard, some shifting uncomfortably, others nodding. Musk's eyes narrowed, his voice dropping low. "You're crossing a line, Stephen. People die in cars every day, every company. You're pinning something on me without proof, and that's not truth." That's theater. Colbert's hand closed around the glass now, knuckles whitening. Theater? He snapped. You want theater? How's this? Insiders say you saw the crash reports, knew the risks, and pushed anyway because slowing down wasn't in your playbook. That's not a company. That's a gamble with lives. The audience erupted, murmurs turning to shouts, a chaotic swell of reactions. Musk shook his head. That's not how it works. You're making a story out of nothing. Show me the reports, or stop talking. Colbert's face twisted, anger boiling over. Stop talking, he said, his voice shaking. You don't get to shut this down, Elon. You don't get to play cool while people suffer. You knew, and you let it happen. He slammed his hand on the desk, the glass tipping slightly, water sloshing. Musk didn't move, his voice icy. You're yelling, not proving. If I knew, I'd fix it. You've got nothing but noise. That was it. Colbert snapped. Noise? He roared, grabbing the glass. Here's your noise. In one furious motion, he hurled the water across the desk, the liquid arcing through the air and splashing over Musk's face and chest, droplets scattering under the studio lights. The audience gasped, a collective jolt, some jumping to their feet, others frozen in disbelief. Musk blinked, water dripping from his hair, his jacket soaked. For a split second he didn't move, just sat there, processing. Then he wiped his face with a slow hand, looked at Colbert and said, Feel better? The room exploded, cheers and boos colliding, chaos spilling over. Colbert stood there, chest heaving, the empty glass still in his hand, his eyes wide with a mix of rage and shock at what he'd just done. The cameras kept rolling, catching every second of the mess. Water dripped from Elon Musk's face, pooling on the desk in front of him, the studio lights glinting off the wet streaks on his jacket. The audience was a mess, a tangle of shouts and gasps, some cheering like it was a bar fight, others staring in stunned silence. Stephen Colbert stood there, the empty glass trembling slightly in his hand, his breath ragged, his face flushed with a fury that hadn't burned out yet. Musk's "Feel better" hung in the air, calm but cutting, and for a moment nobody moved. Then Colbert dropped the glass onto the desk with a dull clunk, running a hand through his hair, his eyes darting from Musk to the crowd. Better? He said, voice hoarse. No, Elon, I don't feel better. I feel sick. Sick of watching you skate by while people pay for it. The room buzzed, the energy chaotic, uncontainable. Musk wiped his face again, flicking water off his fingers, his expression unreadable but his posture stiff. You're sick? He said, voice low, deliberate. Try building something, Stephen. Try failing in front of the world and still getting up. You throw water, I take hits. That's the difference. The audience split again, some clapping for Musk, others murmuring support for Colbert. The host laughed, a bitter, jagged sound. Hits? You're dripping wet and still acting like the martyr. You don't take hits, you dish them out and call it progress. He gestured to the crowd. These people deserve answers, not your lines. Musk leaned back, water still beating on his collar. They deserve facts. You've got none. Just a tantrum. The word landed hard, and Colbert's jaw clenched, his hands balling into fists. Tantrum? He said, stepping around the desk, closer to Musk. You think this is a game? People died, Elon. Real people, not numbers on a spreadsheet. And you're sitting there smug, like it's all just noise. The crowd roared, a wave of reactions crashing together, some yelling, Tell him, Stephen! Others shouting Musk's name. A producer offstage waved frantically, mouthing something, but Colbert didn't see it, too locked in. Musk stood up now, water staining his shirt, meeting Colbert eye to eye. Smug's your take, he said, voice steady but cold. I've lost. Sleep over every crash, every failure. You don't know that because you don't ask. You accuse. Big difference. Colbert's eyes blazed, his voice rising again. Don't know. I know enough. I know you've got lawyers burying stories, PR spinning lies, while you play the hero. You're not losing sleep. You're counting billions. He jabbed a finger toward Musk, inches from his chest. The audience was on its feet now, a fever pitch of noise, some filming with their phones, others just watching the train wreck unfold. Musk didn't step back, his gaze locked on Colbert. "Spin that however you want," he said. "I'm not the one losing it on live TV. You're proving my point." That hit like a slap, and Colbert's face twisted, his control slipping further. "Proving your point?" he shouted. "You're proving mine. You're untouchable, and it's disgusting." The studio was chaos, a storm of sound and motion, cameras swiveling to catch every angle. Colbert turned to the audience, arms out. "You see this? This is who he is. All talk, no accountability." The crowd responded, a mix of cheers and boos, but Musk cut through it, voice sharp now. "Accountability's facing what's real, Stephen. You're chasing shadows and calling it justice. Grow up." The insult landed and Colbert spun back, his hand twitching like he might grab something else to throw. Instead he laughed, wild and unhinged. "Grow up?" says the guy who tweets memes while his empire burns. "You're a child with too much power." Musk shook his head, water dripping onto the floor, and sat back down, calm amid the storm. "Power's building something," he said. "You're just tearing down. Who's the child?" The audience erupted again, split down the middle as Colbert stood there, chest heaving, staring at Musk like he couldn't believe he'd lost the reins. Offstage, producers scrambled, one yelling into a headset, "Cut to commercial now!" The lights dimmed. The theme music kicked in, but the tension didn't break. It just froze, raw and jagged, as the feed went dark. The studio lights faded as the commercial break hit, but the air didn't clear. It thickened with a strange, buzzing quiet. Stephen Colbert stood there, hands on his hips, staring at the desk where water still pooled, his tie askew, his face a mix of defiance and disbelief. Elon Musk sat back in his chair, soaked but composed, brushing damp hair from his forehead as a stagehand rushed over with a towel. He took it, nodded a quick thanks, and wiped his face, eyes flicking toward the audience. They were still on their feet, some shouting, others whispering, phones glowing as they recorded the chaos even after the cameras cut. Off stage, producers huddled, voices low and urgent, one barking into a phone, "Get legal on this now!" The mess wasn't over. It was just starting. Colbert turned away, storming toward the wings, muttering under his breath, "Unbelievable." A producer caught up, grabbing his arm. "Stephen, we've got to figure this out. That went way off script." Colbert yanked free. "Off script? He's a brick wall deflecting everything. You saw it." The producer hesitated. "Yeah, but you threw the water. That's the clip they'll run." Colbert froze, the weight of that sinking in, then shook his head. "Good. Let them run it. People need to see who he is." He disappeared into his dressing room, the door slamming shut, leaving the crew scrambling. Meanwhile, Musk stood, handed the towel back, and walked off stage, his phone already buzzing in his pocket. He checked it, a faint smirk crossing his lips as notifications piled up, X lighting up with reactions. Within minutes, the internet was a furnace. Clips of Colbert hurling the water hit X first, racking up millions of views before the show even resumed. Headlines screamed, "Colbert soaks Musk in explosive interview," and "Elon stays cool as Colbert loses it." Comments poured in. "Stephen just proved Elon's point, Tantrum City," versus "Musk got what he deserved, dodging real questions." The split was brutal, fans on both sides digging in, while others dissected every word, every frame. Newsrooms raced to spin it, some calling it a meltdown, others a stand against arrogance. Musk scrolled through it all in the back of a Tesla, parked outside the studio, his driver silent. He posted once, simple, "Water's wet. truths harder to splash. The likes skyrocketed, and the storm grew. Back inside, Colbert faced the music. The show resumed, him behind the desk, tie fixed, forcing a grin. "Well, folks," he said, voice strained, "that was something. Guess I owe Elon a dry cleaning bill." Scattered laughs, but the crowd was uneasy, sensing the shift. He tried to pivot. "Look, it's about accountability, right? We ask the tough stuff here." It fell flat, the energy gone, and he rapped early, the applause thin. Upstairs, network execs were in a war room, one slamming a tablet down. "Ratings are up, but the sponsors are spooked. This isn't funny anymore." Another nodded. He crossed a line. Musk's team could sue, or worse, the public turns on us. Colbert sat in his office later, alone, staring at his phone as the clips looped online, his outburst louder than his questions now. By morning, the story wasn't just viral. It was a mirror. People didn't just see Musk versus Colbert. They saw power versus scrutiny, innovation versus outrage. Some praised Musk's calm, calling him unshakable, a guy who took the hit and kept going. Others hailed Colbert, saying he'd exposed a billionaire's shell, even if messily. But the real talk wasn't about winners. It was about the game. Why did Colbert snap? Why did Musk deflect? Why did it feel like the truth got drowned in the splash? X buzzed with regular folks, not pundits, asking harder questions. Who's really accountable, the builder or the asker? The media hated it, because the audience wasn't just watching now, they were thinking. Musk sipped coffee in a quiet office, skimming the fallout, knowing it'd fade but leave a mark. Colbert's team prepped a statement, spinning it as passion, not loss of control. Neither won, not really, but something cracked open that night, a glimpse behind the curtain of how stories get shaped, how tempers flare when the script flips. And that's where it lands, not in the water or the words, but in what you take from it. Was this just a wild TV moment or something bigger, a spark that makes you question who's steering the ship? Drop your thoughts below, hit like if it got you thinking, and subscribe, because the real stories, they're just heating up.